In this tutorial, we will create animation using keyframes. In After Effects, when you record a keyframe, you are recording the specific value of a parameter at a specific point in time. To better understand how to set keyframes, let's get started with our project. If you look at the top of the timeline, you'll notice I have two Illustrator layers. And if I turn the visibility of layer 1 off, you'll notice that's my text layer. And then if I do the same for layer 2, that's the layer that contains my graphic. These are the only two layers we're going to be animating. Let's get started by fading in the text. So I'll select layer 1, and in order to control the opacity, I need to open the opacity settings. The keyboard shortcut for that is T for opacity. Since I want this to fade up from 0, I'm going to change the opacity parameter to a setting of 0, and then I'll set my first keyframe by clicking on the stopwatch to the left of the parameter. Notice the second I do that, I'll get a keyframe that appears in the timeline, directly under the current time indicator. Since it was at frame 0, that's where my keyframe is. Now, in order to create animation, I need to have at least two keyframes in two different places in the timeline. Let's move our current time indicator down the timeline to about 1 second. To be a little more precise, I'll just go to the upper left corner of the timeline and type in 100. Now I'm at 1 second in the timeline. To set our second keyframe, since we've moved the current time indicator, all we need to do is go down to our opacity setting, and I'll click and scrub to the right until it gets to a value of 100%. And notice another keyframe was automatically added directly under the current time indicator. Once you have multiple keyframes in the timeline, you can use these arrows on the left side of the interface to navigate up and down the timeline, back and forth between the keyframes. When you're positioned directly on a keyframe, you'll see a blue diamond here in between these navigational arrows. If I move my current time indicator off of there, now I don't see that blue diamond. Okay, so let's move our current time indicator back to frame 0, and to animate the logo graphic, I'll select layer 2, and this one will adjust the position. So press P to open the position. The order in which you set keyframes doesn't matter. And since our logo graphic is already perfectly placed, let's set the keyframe for that placement first. So I'm going to move to the second keyframe using my navigational arrows from the keyframes I set on the layer above. And now we can set our position keyframe by clicking the stopwatch to the left of the word position. With that keyframe now recorded, we can move our current time indicator back to frame 0 using those same navigational arrows as before. And then let's scrub on the Y parameter to reposition the object off the bottom of the screen. As you're scrubbing, if you hold down Shift, the object will move 10 times as fast. Make sure you slide it until it disappears off the bottom of the composition panel. Then you'll notice a line. This line is called the animation path, and the dots show me exactly where the object's going to be on each individual frame. This large dot here allows me to go ahead and click and drag on a handle if I wanted the animation to kind of move in a different direction. Since I don't want to curve in the animation path, I'll press Ctrl-Z on Windows or Command-Z on the Mac to undo that last change. Now we can preview our animation by pressing the spacebar on our keyboard. This is close, but not quite. I'm going to press the spacebar to stop playback. I have two issues. The first issue is the fact that both of these elements are animating at the exact same time. So let's have the text fade in after the logo gets in place. To do that, all we need to do is slide layer 1 further down the timeline. So click in the light purple area and drag layer 1 towards the right. If you hold Shift as you drag, notice it will snap to other keyframes in the timeline. Now, if we preview this animation one more time, you'll notice the only other issue I'm seeing is the fact that the slide is rather robotic. And that's because it's moving at a constant velocity and then it just stops. This is called linear motion. And in order to smooth this out, I need to add a thing called ease. So to quickly add ease to multiple keyframes, all you have to do is just click on the parameter in the timeline. So I'll click on the word position, and notice now both of the position keyframes are highlighted blue. I can go up under the animation menu and go to Keyframe Assistant and choose Easy Ease, and that'll automatically apply ease to both keyframes. So if we move our current time indicator back to the beginning of the timeline and press the spacebar, notice now I get a nice smooth motion to the slide of my animation.